Good evening and welcome to the October meeting of the Salem Area Mass Transit District Board of Directors. This evening's agenda will include a safety moment, and we have two presentations. We have our consent calendar, which basically includes minutes of previous meetings and approval of the budget calendar for fiscal year 2020. And we have one action item, which will be the approval of the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund Plan application. And we'll have information reports and general managers reports and board of directors reports. And with that, I will reconvene the meeting and ask Director Rogers to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Linda, would you note that all the directors are present, so we have a quorum? Thank you. And now I will call on our general manager for our safety moment.
Thank you. I have three safety items that I'd like to share. So first, just to let you know, this week is National Teen Driver Safety Week. And so we've been promoting it all week at roundtables. There are some pretty startling statistics. I'll just share a couple of them with you. That in Oregon, statistics show that teens aged 15 to 20 that have not been through a driver education campaign cause 91% of the teen-related car crashes. Wow. So if you're looking for a way to make an impact with teens, get them in a driver campaign. One of the statistics that we've been sharing, that in Oregon last year, 51 people were killed by 44 drivers that were in age 15 to 20 brackets, and that 40 of those 44 drivers had not been through the driver education campaign. So pretty important to do that. So about one person a week died as a result of a teen crash. So just think of the impact, not only to those that died, but to all the family members involved. So if you want to make a difference in teens' lives, get them in a driver education campaign. If you want to make them not be a statistic, there's another way to minimize traffic accidents, and we've been asking people, what would that be?
Ride the bus.
That's right, ride the bus. So we are helping to reduce teen injuries and deaths. The second item I have is, I think you're all aware that we partner with SAFE for our workers' comp program. And each year they do an evaluation and give out different dividends, and one of them is based on your safety performance. And we were notified last week that we will receive a 9.82% dividend return, or premium, dividend on the premium from last year's premium. So that's great news, and that's because of the SAFE activity here at the district. And we will take that money and reinvest it in other programs. So some good news there. And then the last item, that we are beginning the holiday season. And so to help you control your stress levels for that, because the holidays are a high stress period, we've got little holiday themed stress balls for you. So use it in good stead. And that's it for safety moments today.
Thank you. Are there any announcements or changes to the agenda? Then we have two presentations, so I'll call on our general manager to introduce the first presentation.
For that, I'd like to ask Al McCoy, our CFO, to please come up and make some opening comments.
Thank you. I want to introduce our presenter tonight of the CAFR Award. This is Don Hudson. He is the Finance Director of the City of Tualatin. He serves on the Board of Directors for the Oregon Government Finance Officers Association, is also the GFOA representative. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. You stole some of my thunder, but thank you. Board President, members of the board, as Mr. McCoy said, I am Don Hudson, the Finance Director with the City of Tualatin and past President of the Oregon Government Finance Officers Association. I'm actually here this evening representing the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. Before getting to the reason why I am here representing them this evening, I'd like to give you a little background of both OGFOA and GFOA. The Oregon Government Finance Officers Association maintains a membership of approximately 500 members. We are cities, counties, special districts, school districts, as well as association members that represent vendors like banks and our bond councils and so forth. We promote professionalism and excellence in public finance management through a commitment with 4 primary goals. We foster individual professional growth, we advance the government finance profession, we further standards and policies for the benefit of our communities and our members, and monitoring and reviewing legislative and judicial activities as they relate to our membership. GFOA was founded in 1906 and represents finance officials throughout the United States and Canada. The association has over 20,000 members across the country from federal, state, and local governments. GFOA's mission, similar to OGFOA, provides best practice guidelines, networking opportunities, large collection of publications and research, as well as high-quality training opportunities for their members. Another program through GFOA is their recognition program, and that's why I'm here this evening. I'm pleased to be here this evening to present the Salem Area Mass Transit District with the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. I'll present this to the board president when I'm done. This award is for the agency's comprehensive annual financial report. The Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting program was established in 1945 to assist and encourage state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles in preparing their comprehensive annual financial report, or CAFR. These reports provide evidence that the spirit of transparency and full disclosure is done. There are 3 reviewers that review each CAFR for this program. They have a checklist of 79 pages, so it's about this thick, with over 500 items that must be addressed in the CAFR to get the award. There are actually 124 of those that are specific, and if any one is not appropriately presented in the financial statements, one failure could disqualify the entire report from getting this award. These requirements range from as simple as a table of contents to, and I'm going to have to read this one exactly because, and if any of you understand what this means, please raise your hand. Complex is ensuring your statements properly combined the expenses of individual functions and activities with related program revenues to calculate the net expense revenue of each function and activity. Anybody can explain that to any of us? I probably can't either, that's okay. By achieving this award, the district has ensured that its financial statements are more than just numbers. Your customers can be assured that your financial position is transparent, fully disclosed, and of the highest quality comparable at the national level. In Oregon, there are 119 total organizations that receive this award. Only 27 of them are special districts, and only 4 are transit districts. This is the 6th consecutive year that your agency has received this recognition. I want to particularly recognize Al McCoy and his team for their work on the award-winning CAFR. But recognition should also be given to the rest of the district's management staff, the general manager, and of course, all of you. Your support should not be overlooked in getting this award. Thank you for letting me come this evening to honor your staff and your agency in this award.
Yeah.
Could have the board please come up front and we'll receive a photo as you receive the award.
Okay, Mr. Pollock?
Great, thank you. So we do have another presentation for you this evening. This one is for our Marion County Earthwise Certification Award. As part of Cherriots' commitment to improving and promoting environmental sustainability, we do participate in Marion County's Earthwise certification program. Earthwise certification recognizes businesses in Marion County that have made a commitment to environmentally friendly practices. With this recognition, Cherriots will receive public recognition for their sustainability practices through the Marion County website, in their printed materials associated with the Earthwise program, and with an Earthwise plaque. Earthwise focuses on several different areas, which include recycling, waste reduction and prevention, environmentally preferable purchasing, energy efficiency and conservation, water pollution prevention, and outreach and education. Cherriots was required to meet the criteria outlined in their certification application. Alan Pennington, the Marion County Waste Reduction Coordinator, conducted an on-site certification of our facilities along with members of the Cherriots Sustainability Committee, after which we were designated as Earthwise certified for another period. The plaque being awarded this evening signifies a 2-year qualification in the Earthwise program. This is the 3rd certification award that we've received. With that, I'd ask the board to please come forward so we can present the board the Marion County Earthwise certification plaque for the period 2018 to 2021. And I'd also ask members of the Sustainability Committee to please join the board. Cozy hour. So I would ask, before we move on to the next piece of business, I should have done this earlier, if the Sustainability Committee members for Cherriots could please stand so we can recognize them.
The board gets all the credit, but you guys do all the work, so we thank you.
Thank you very much.
We've now reached the period for public comment. Has anyone signed up for public comment? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment at this time? Okay, we will move on to the consent calendar.
Approval of the consent calendar?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our next item is approval of the statewide Transportation Improvement Fund Plan application. And I'll call on our general manager.
Great. And I'll ask Chris French, our senior planner, to please present the report.
Good evening, President Krebs, members of the board. I'm here this evening to ask the board to approve the STIF plan as recommended by the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund Advisory Committee with the adoption of resolution number 2018-09. This plan staff have been working on over the past month, and we brought this to your work session in October. The plan remains pretty much the same with one minor change to the fair, to the youth fair, and I'll discuss that more as we go on. This plan takes the estimated revenue provided to us, that will be provided to us by the Oregon Department of Transportation. They provided a number of the estimate, and they've asked us to put a plan together that is 100% of that fund and also 130% of those funds. In order for us to implement any of the plans, you have to have presented that to them to use the dollars. So we want to make sure that if we receive additional funds, that we have plans in place that we can implement to use those dollars. This plan includes service for the Cherriots local system, Cherriots Lift, the Cherriots regional system, and also our other public transit providers in our area, which are Woodburn Transit and Silverton Transit, or City of Silverton. With that, these dollars are for the years of 2019 through 2021. We've created a plan for each year based on the 100% and the 120 and 130%. I'm going to mostly focus on the 2020 plan tonight. I will say that in 2019, we are using those funds for startup costs, hiring operators, training employees to get people in place so that we're ready to implement our service, and also creating a reserve fund so that we have a stable base as to ensure that our service is consistent, that we don't have to cut it as we see variations in the payroll tax. So for the Cherriots local plan or Cherriots service, we are planning to do our rollout of service in stages, with the first stage of service that's going to go out is in September of 2019. We are going to, at that point, our plan is to introduce Saturday service and later evening service. And then in May of 2020, implement Sunday service, Sunday and holiday service. We're using the rolled out method instead of just putting it all out in September, so that we can actually evaluate the funds that are coming in and making sure that we're not putting more service out there than funds that we get and then have to reduce service for that. For the local system, Cherriots will be adding, for the 2020, 27,852 hours on weekends, 5,685 extended evening hours, and 1,112 holiday hours. These numbers are represented in Table 4, and that gives the summary of what the service is, and we discussed that at the work session. For the regional system, we are adding additional service as well as purchasing some vehicles in order to provide that service with the dollars. In 2020, we plan to add 1,762 weekend hours to the regional system, 2,656 weekday hours, and we don't plan to implement any holiday service at this point in time for the regional system. The final thing for the Cherriots plan is the fares. We will be bringing the fares back to the board in the formal process for changing fares, but this is the recommendation that we're bringing to you, that we will bring back to you. And the change that we're looking at is the youth from 6 to 18 have a 50-cent one-way on the local system, $1 day pass, and a $10 30-day pass. The $10 30-day pass is the change that we made from what we brought to you in the work session. That pass was, sorry, that pass when we brought it to you was at $14. Working with the board and with the STIF advisory committee, we came to the agreement that the $10. I will let you know that when we were working with the STIF committee, fares were a very big item on their list, and they agreed to this fare structure, but they want to definitely in the next biennium us to take another look at the low-income fare and also reevaluate the youth fare to see what we can do with those fares as well. So I expect when we come back to you guys in the next biennium, there will be more discussion about fares at that point in time. Next, we'll move on to the City of Woodburn. Woodburn's plan includes the purchase of vehicles and weekend service, as well as expanded fixed route service during the week on one of their routes to provide an overlap of their current service to provide more frequency on that route. And it won't cover the entire route, but it will cover the most frequent used stops. So that's their plan for improvement, and then rolling some of that money forward in order to purchase additional vehicles to maintain their service. The City of Silverton plans to add additional hours to their Silver Trolley service, which is a dial-a-ride service. And in order to do that, they need to hire a person to drive those additional hours. They'll use that person also to do some coordination within their system to help publicize the trolley system within the community, and also to provide information to kind of add knowledge of the system to the community. It's not a very publicized system. They also plan to complete a study within their community for the possibility of a deviated fixed route system in their community. The proposed addition of service, reduced fare, and capital purchases made possible by House Bill 2017 have a cost, but will be fully funded by the STIF funding. The STIF funding plan annualized total costs presented here range from an estimated $2,739,000 for funding for 100% plan in fiscal year 19 to an estimated $9,014,487 funding for the 130% plan in FY 2021. The following charts provide a summary of these costs. At this time, the STIF Advisory Committee recommends that the board adopt the STIF plan as presented. And at this time, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions? Director Lincoln?
Not a question really, but just a comment. This was a lot of work with a lot of moving parts done in a short amount of time, so I really appreciate all the work that the staff did, working with a new committee that wasn't familiar with how the fares worked and how the schedules worked, and coming up with all of these that we really don't know estimates of what we're going to have through the new taxes. So I really thank the staff for all the work that you've done. And I also want folks to know out there that we did discuss quite some time about spent some time discussing the youth fair, and decided the less that we charge, the fewer routes we can do too. So that was kind of the trade-off. You know, do we drop service? We lower the fares, but then the consequence of that is reducing some of the service. So it's kind of a trade-off. So I appreciate the fact that it'll be good to come back and look at this again in a couple of years, see how things go.
Director Kelly?
This is a plan that's going out for 2 to 2.5 years. And I would assume that one of the things that we would be looking at as we provide this new service is the utilization of the service, and are we able to do some changes once the plan's approved? I'm thinking especially of
of the traditional lower ridership on Sundays and having an ability to maybe put that into a more robust service weekdays, or are we stuck with this through 2021?
Well, kind of a little of each, so let me explain. So really, we won't have, to use your example, Sunday starting until May of 2020, and you're going to have to let that run for a period of time to see how it works. And at some point, we will look to do an operation comprehensive analysis of all the service and make tweaks along the way. I don't know how quickly we'll be able to recognize Sunday may not be productive. By the time we're going to have to submit the plan for 2022 through 2024. But I think once it's out there, there's nothing set in stone. It has to be this forever. It'll be, I would suggest it'd be part of your normal operations analysis. And all right, this needs more service, this needs less. And then looking at even now filling in the gaps that we don't provide currently, even with this plan.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of the area that I represent that doesn't really have any access. I'm really pleased about the evening service, because when we did put in, I've been on the board so long that we used to have evening service that ended basically at 6:15. When we put in the later evening service, we acquired ridership because people were more comfortable with the ability to get to work and get home at the same time if they had to work late or do something like that. So I'm real pleased about this, the later evening service and the Saturday service, because that's just critical. But I just want to share the wisdom of almost 30 years on the board, that transit systems around the country tend to have a lower ridership on Sunday, and that we need to make sure that we acknowledge that either by a variation in service or really keeping a good look at something that's going on. Not that I think that we shouldn't have Sunday service, it's just that we want to make sure that we're providing the best bang for the buck that people are utilizing, and maybe having something more creative on a Sunday than fixed route.
Yes, Director Bush.
Again, I want to bring attention to all the work that's gone on into the community finally getting Saturday service. Started way back before House Bill 17 passed, 2017. Legislative people testifying, a lot of research, a lot of conversations. And so here we are, we're at the point, yes, we get to do this. So I'm exciting to be part of it.
Any other comments or questions? Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make the motion,
Oh, Director
if I
Kelly?
may. If I can get back to the...
Page 44.
Thanks. I move the board accept the STIF plan as recommended by the STIF Advisory Committee and adopt resolution 2018-09 and direct the general manager to submit the STIF plan application to ODOT by the November 1st, 2018 deadline. That's next week.
Second.
Oh, it's been moved and second. Any discussion? Director Kelly?
I'm happy to make that motion because I was chairing the committee when we had to make the decision to cut Saturday service. And it was something I didn't want to do, but it was best for the physical health of the agency. And so it's good to know that we're going to be able to, in the near future now, have Saturday service.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Well, then we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. So that means that if everything goes according to plan, in a little over 10 months, we'll see buses rolling on Saturday in Salem and Kaiser.
317 days.
New buses, too.
Yes.
So thank you. And we don't have any reports, so I'll call on our general manager.
Thanks. I just have a few items to report. So earlier this week, I attended the last City of Salem Transit Committee meeting. A couple of board members were also in attendance, where we approved a set of recommendations to present to the council, which should happen probably either the end of November, beginning of December, when that is scheduled and the staff reports out. I'll be sure to get it to you. That was about a year-long committee that went through a good period of education, and then really had discussion on a variety of different things. I'll save more comment till the final recommendations out, but really, there's some good things there to really begin a good process. So, as that gets published, I will let you know. Also, this week I did my quarterly series of roundtables with employees and shared information, especially the strategic plan, which I'll talk about in a minute, as well as a few other items. Good participation, good attendance, but we'll keep doing them every quarter. Since the last board meeting, we had our bus rodeo, and several of you were able to attend parts of that, and congratulate Dan Miller for winning again, and he'll represent us at the bus rodeo next year in Louisville, Kentucky. Also, since the last time, the Motor Bus Society toured our facilities as part of their Portland conference. They were here, the last time they were here, our buses operated out on the street in front of Marion County Courthouse. And some of those people that were there were at this tour, so it was nice to see that. And President Krebs came and made some welcome comments and had a chance to chat with several of the members. Also, several staff members will be out the first couple days of next week for the Oregon Public Transportation Conference. Also, we talked about our workers' comp and our sustainability, but another program we have is our wellness program, and I'll put this in my weekly report tomorrow, but Oregon Business published an article about our wellness program as a result of our participation through SAFE. So it's a nice article about our wellness program and the results that we're seeing as part of that. So you'll see that tomorrow. And also you should have at each of your chairs the printed version of our new strategic plan that you adopted a couple of months ago. So this is now in final form, and we have shared it with the internal workforce, and now we'll begin the public sharing of it. But we want to make sure we had the employees first. And just a reminder, it's the holiday time, so there's only a work session in November and only a board meeting in December, so 2 more meetings, so it's a little bit different. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Well, I have quite a bit to report. Not as busy as last month, but I didn't give my report on attending the American Public Transit Association meeting in September, and so I have some high points here. I attended a number of I thought it was a very productive meeting. I attended a streetcar subcommittee. As you know, I'm an advocate for streetcars, and hopefully someday we'll see one in Salem. But I had a personal conversation with the chair of the Toronto Transit Commission. Now, Toronto is the 3rd largest transit system in North America, runs an very large rail network, and they have a vast streetcar network. And he shared his PowerPoint presentation, which was very good. It shows some of the same things we keep preaching, shows a transit vehicle and how many spaces it takes on a street, and then private motor vehicles and how many spaces they take on a street, a number of other things, but I'll share that with you. They have a rail transit system that operates and has a capacity of 60,000 passengers an hour per track, and that's amazing when you consider the largest capacity on a road lane is about 4,500 passengers per hour. They also pointed out that 21 streetcars in Toronto can provide the same capacity as 2,500 private cars. And streetcars stimulate the economic development, and they encourage more bike ped activities, helping to reduce cars on the street. We had transit board subcommittees, and we were told that there's going to be 16 to 16.5 billion coming for transit in the Federal Transit Administration pipeline, and that 74% of Americans want Congress to fund improved transit. So those are two key issues that we learned. I attended a meeting on building transit-oriented communities, and those are called TODs, T-O-Ds. The FTA supports value capture concepts. A TOD connects people to opportunities. It supports economic growth. It encourages more compact residential and commercial mixed use. It encourages walkability. Better coordination is needed to overcome political barriers in developing TODs, because you need city and other jurisdictions to participate in the zoning and building codes. Transit in the future needs to play an important part in city plans. Land use and transit connection must be included in all plans. Plan for transit before development rather than after, and leverage federal investment with private sector participation, and use the value created by transit for tax incentive financing, and public participation in the whole process is essential. Otherwise, people don't understand what's going on, and then you have people rising up against you. We had a very interesting session on transit response to homelessness, and we have homelessness here, but I don't think we have quite the problem with our transit system that some of the bigger cities do, where homeless people, especially in the bad weather, get on transit and ride so they don't have to be out in the weather, and especially systems that have 24-hour service. But anyway, there's a lot of work going on by transit agencies to work with other agencies to address the homeless problem. And I know here in Salem and Kaiser we have a major effort focused on that also. Ellen and I attended a Building High Impact Transit Board CEO governing team, and we talked about a number of things, and we'll probably bring those up at a work session to see if maybe there's some adjustments. We have a very good board, but maybe there's a few things we can tweak to make it even better. And better communication. The big issue is that the board needs to be not just rubber stamping staff's action. We need to be discussing it and looking at it in a creative way. I attended the battery electric buses meeting, and one of the things that has come up is that if we have applied for LONO or NOLO grants, which to get electric buses, and we've not been a recipient, but as I understand it, is if you get one of those, then you don't get a grant to buy regular buses. And for the time being, we probably need to keep replacing the buses in our fleet because you get more buses if you buy regular buses than electric buses because of the cost. Also, attending this meeting, I found there's still a learning curve with electric buses, and there are things like how do you build your maintenance facility, and how do you do things that are a little different when you're dealing with petroleum-powered or CNG buses. So probably it's good for us to let the larger systems develop the technology, and then when they get it worked out, then we can jump into that mode. I'm not opposed to electric buses. I think they're great, but I think that then we had a couple of motivational type things. Our shared future and the role of transit in an evolving mobility landscape. And this woman got up and she's talking about moving people in small metal boxes on scarce urban streets. And she pointed out that in San Francisco, if you use a block of street space, a lane of streetcars carries 60 passengers per block, a lane of buses carries 40 passengers per block, and private vehicles carry less than 12 passengers per block. So you get more mileage or more bang for the buck. She also pointed out that we need to look at how we price our transportation and how we price our streets, and we need fair user fees for people using our streets. We need congestion pricing, correct price for personal cars, and 80% of the riders in in the larger cities come in using, 86% of the riders in San Francisco use personal cars to get around. So we need to look at how do we move people more efficiently, not vehicles. Can't have a robust community without transit. How do you measure congestion? Needs to be a different way than we're using now. Multi-transit is a new term for future systems. We need better TOD policies. And when you deal with transportation, you need to look at fundamental human rights issues and equality or equity. And she came out and said ridership is not a good measure of transit because ridership is a byproduct. You have all kinds of things like better health, economic values, lower taxes that are produced by better transit systems. And one of the things that I thought was really great that came out of this was work with nonprofits to develop resources and revenues to support the transit. And that would be like getting grants from areas that we don't qualify to get grants from to buy tickets for or passes for various groups that are in that need help with their transit or their transportation. And then the last one we attended was the last meeting was talking about using big data to prove our point. There's a lot of things out there that transit does, and we need to use data, and I'm going to just paraphrase that, to sell our product. But anyway, it was a very good meeting and some ideas, and I will send you out some stuff to deal with that in the future so that we can follow up on that. Other things I did, I attended the age-friendly planning process, and Salem got a 57 out of 100 for being an age-friendly city, and this is a process that we discuss all of these. There'll be a report coming out probably in the next quarter or so on that, but it's sort of finishing up now, and it's dealing with making a city usable by all the ages that live here. I also attended the Mid-Valley Council of Governments Directors meeting, and two things that were of interest that came out of that. One was they were talking about having a photometric telemetry, like our guest speaker, I have to read that one, is making these maps like Google Maps of our county, and the idea is then planners and people that need to look at things can just go into this map and they get a fairly current picture of what's on the ground, and you can look at it as a map or you can look at it as a picture, and you can go down similar to what you get on Google Maps, except more current and more accurate. And they were talking about how to pay for it, and they were suggesting all the various governments that belong to the COG could contribute, and the suggested, now no action was taken, but the suggested share for transit was about $2,700 if we participated. But again, it's not, nothing is mandatory in the COG, it's all by consensus. So, and the other thing we did was we talked about some of the transportation and some of the issues that we want the legislature to be concerned with, and so out of those issues we had strong support of no unfunded mandates. We had in the general local governance, we wanted building code enforcement and preserve local authority for rights of way. And when we got into the water, guess what issue came up the most, which was the canyon water situation in Detroit. And also there's some water rights issues that may surface that might be a little scary for some of the smaller communities if the Santiam goes down. So these were issues that need to be addressed. In transportation, they discussed the relevance of the area commissions on transportation, the acts. As you know, there's talk of disbanding those or doing something else, and they see that they probably are good because they bring the local jurisdictions into conversation with ODOT. And they also talked somewhat about jurisdictional transfers and having money going with them. That's where you take a road like 99E and you change it to a city street and give it to a city, and then the city has to pay the maintenance and so forth on it. And this is sort of an unfunded mandate when it happens. Community development, basically it was regional economic development analysis. So those were the things that I did on that meeting, and then I think I got to the bottom of my pile here. So I talked a lot tonight, but I hope I gave you something to talk about. And could I call on Director Thompson to go first on the director's reports?
You bet. It wasn't a terribly busy month for me, but I did the regular board meeting, the work session, the executive session, and I did 2 chamber policy meetings where we listened to candidates on one of them and listened to a measure on the other one. They made no recommendations in either one of the meetings. Also went to a SEDCOR meeting that talked about the career and technical education in smaller school districts around in our 3 county areas. And it was really interesting to see what Cascade and Dallas and some of those small school districts are actually doing in career education. One other thing, I went to the bus open house and saw those beautiful buses, and I just started having nightmares about putting ads on them. I'm just wondering if staff could look at that and see what it would be, what it might cost us to do something like that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Director Lincoln?
It was kind of a busy month. I attended the board meeting and the work session. The City Transit Committee meeting, got there at the end and heard the report, the draft report, vote on that. Attended the Southeast Kaiser Neighborhood Association meeting. There was a debate among 4 city council candidates, 2 and 2. And went to the Salem City Club and heard a robust debate on one of the ballot measures, state ballot measures, which was very interesting. Also attended an East Salem Town Hall meeting that the county commissioners held. I had no idea lighting was such a big deal. That was, I bet for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, they talked about lighting. So I guess that was good. I didn't hear anything about buses or, complaints about the transportation system. So, and then I attended the SCATS meeting on Tuesday, which I'll expand on a little bit in a minute. Met with the general manager for an hour or so, and got to the bus rodeo. Also got there a little late. Missed the rodeo, but at least I was in on the lunch and the award presentation. So it's cool to see all the interest in that and all the skilled drivers we have. Also have been doing a lot with the Kaiser City Council and some studies that Kaiser's doing to revitalize River Road, and also studying whether they're going to expand their urban growth boundary. So that's been pretty interesting. The SCATS meeting on Tuesday, we talked about, the main issue was the revising the regional transportation system plan, and they just wrote, the staff just drafted a new chapter on the gaps and needs in our current system. And as far as transit, they mentioned buses, which is always something that we need money for, sidewalks that link people to transit stops, the South Salem Transit Center that's it's being planned, and also discussions with Chemeketa on expanding and enhancing stops at that at Chemeketa Community College. So those were the broad outline of things that they're planning over the next several years. This is I think it's a 4-year plan, the RTSP. Next month, they're going to talk about financial projections and try to fit, what do we have money to spend, how much money do we have to spend on these proposed projects? Because the new transportation improvement plan, I think it's 215, 221 to 2021 to 2024 is the next transportation improvement plan that we need to plan for projects that we want to be funded in that funding cycle. We're already almost through the current funding cycle, so we're ready to start a new funding cycles. So that's something we'll be working with SCATS and with ODOT and our other partners in the area to flesh out what projects we want in that plan and how it can be funded. And then there's an OMPOC meeting tomorrow in Bend. I'll be leaving at 6 in the morning to attend that. There's also one final thing. They mentioned yesterday that there's some unexpected additional federal funds possible for our area, $1 to $1.5 million in funds. So the staff, Karen Odenthal, suggested that we look at the projects that we already have funding for and see if we need any, if they're fully funded. I was thinking about our stoplight at Kaiser Station. If we need extra money for projects that we already have underway, that would be an appropriate use of some of those funds. And I think that's all.
Thank you. Director Evans?
Well, it was a busy month. Did the board meeting and the regular meetings. I actually went to the STIF advisory meeting, and it was a lively conversation about fares and low-income fare reductions. They did come to a consensus about the balance between, I think we got a good explanation of that today. I met with a couple of constituents over the bus schedules on 26 and 27, so I rode the buses, and it is what it is. The buses do sit for a while so they can link up with other buses, so I think that was their concern, that they were sitting out in the route for timing, and so you can't do much about that because you have to link up at the right time with the other buses. Then I did the demo forum, and the neighborhood association was their annual meeting, the West Salem Neighborhood Association, and it was also a candidate forum, and one of the two candidates for House District 20 showed and the other did not, so the questions were centered around the bridge mostly during that time, and I guess that's it.
Thank you. Director Kelly?
Why don't you go just straight on down?
Okay.
Okay,
Director
just
Bush?
go down the line. So this was for October. I attended the regular board meeting, the work session, and the executive session. I had to leave the work session early because I was suddenly ill and did much better about 3 days later. But I also spent the first couple of weeks either sick or out of town, so I didn't get to do as many things as I normally do. I did attend, I wanted to mention the Kaiser Times September 28 article edition had a nice little article about our bus ribbon cutting ceremony. Picture of all of us actually cutting the ribbon, and then a bigger article of Congressman Schrader. Anyway, I attended the Kaiser Government Affairs Committee, and they were discussing the measures that were on the ballot as far as it related to business, and also the candidates to watch for, depending on the races, which way they would go. Paid attention to that. Attended the Kaiser Chamber Foundation's Better Boards training that they had for nonprofits, but it was very helpful as well for our public boards, especially when they started talking about making sure your funding is right, and it was very good. I talked with a constituent who was a retired vet. I don't remember which branch, but she was trying to help get services for retired veterans in our area. And I mentioned the stand down that is usually held a couple times a year, and how we partner in that, helping getting veterans to that stand down. So I had her contact our office to see about that. I attended the Dearborn Bridge ribbon cutting. It is finally done. You can drive all the way across Dearborn in Kaiser, finally. It's beautiful, and the AKS engineering company did a fantastic job. And I didn't know that Salem sewer pipes, the big, huge, however big it is, it all goes underneath that bridge. So it had to take extra time to make sure they got it done right. So, and and attended coffee with Mayor Kathy Clark, and then one of the main topics was the Kaiser revitalization, growth issues, the homelessness concern in our area, and there will be a work session with Kaiser City Council and the Homeless Initiative Committee, October 29 at the Kaiser City Hall at 6 p.m. for a wrap-up, see how things are going. I hear that the coordinator that they hired is now leaving for another position, so we'll be hiring a new coordinator for that. And I attended the Public Transportation Committee meeting, so it was fun. I'm done.
Thank you. Director Rogers.
Sometimes you go to a lot of things and don't get much information. Other times you go to a few things and you're inundated. Kind of happened to me. The regular work session, board meeting, executive session, I did those. And then I had 2 town halls I went to. One was City of Salem Town Hall at the Broadway Commons. They wanted to know, how do you want us to focus on the budget? And I wanted to be sure that they don't forget transit. And you could write things down on the board, focus on this or that. And really, cul-de-sacs don't help us a lot. I've noticed that, so I asked them to be careful how they plan their streets, because we need to get a bus through to pick up the citizens. And another town hall I went to, Marion County, same one that Director Lincoln went to. And they did talk about lighting a lot. They also, I'll get to that in a minute, they talked about hazard awareness. It's not just an earthquake that could happen. Mount Hood is a volcano that's not dormant. There's fire, winter storms, the dam can fail. Lots of things. So they gave lots of good information on that. They pulled up a report that SCATS made, crash locations in the Salem-Kaiser area. There were 3,361 total reported crashes, which most of those were fender benders because people followed too close. And I would guess that most of those were caused by people in the 16 to 20 range, like we heard earlier this evening. Well, I'll keep this out for anybody who wants to see it. As far as lighting goes, there's little black dots on this sheet. I think there's 185 of them, something like that, where they're trying to put streetlights up. It's a 6-year plan, but they're going ahead with it. So Center Street will no longer be a dark alley. Satter Drive behind Chemeketa will be lit up for everyone, including our ridership. And I thought that was really neat. I wanted to share that one. They're also putting together neighborhood associations, just like Salem has, Marion County will have. So I've contacted a couple of the people who are leading the way with that, so that when they get it off the ground, we'll be there on the ground floor to discuss with their groups what's going on with transit, so we can keep dialogue open. While riding the bus, you try to be prepared. I always try to have a day pass in my wallet, just in case I meet up with somebody who I think might need one. So I'm hearing behind me a woman talking to her daughter how she's going to have to walk to the dentist office because she didn't get a chance to get her monthly pass yet. And I thought, you keep eavesdropping, you hear, well, it's going to be quite a walk for her. So I turned around and introduced myself, showed her my badge, so she knew I wasn't just some weirdo. She probably thought that anyway, but at least I had, something to say, hey, I'm a board of director. And I told her I could get her a day pass if that would help her. And, she was ecstatic about that. And I reached in my pocket and my day pass wasn't there. It was on the table at home. So I found out, where she lives so I could go home, pick it up, and then give it to her. And so she was really happy about that. I got her taken care of. And I had some other constituents talking about bus stop issues, questions that you know, can we get a garbage can out by our bus stop because there's garbage on the floor, things like that. And staff helped me a lot putting all of that together so I can get that information back to her. And I guess lastly, I was elected as chair of the neighborhood association we call NOLA in October. So now I can decide what the agenda is, and of course transportation will be right there, right underneath right underneath the minutes when we approve them. And there's my report.
Thank you. And Director Kelly.
So October was a busy month for me, not necessarily just because of transit. I became the secretary-treasurer of my Kiwanis group, and there's a very steep learning curve and a very short deadline, like 10 days to get everything in the right way so that you don't get billed for things that you shouldn't be billed for. So I've attended the board meeting. I missed the work session because I was focusing so much on getting my stuff in for Kiwanis that it was 6:45 before I realized it. But I did my penance and spent 2 hours reading the stiff report and all of the other stuff, so I would be prepared for tonight. I had just a meeting with constituents. There was not an area commission meeting on transportation this month. There is going to be one next week, and Kathy is going to cover it for me because with my other hat, I'm going to be at the annual meeting for the Diocese of Oregon Episcopal Church because I'm a delegate. One of the things that is going to be discussed is the draft environmental impact statement for the Oregon Passenger Rail Plan. And so if people are interested in rail, travel in Oregon, they might want to go online at www.oregonpassengerrail.org. Or there's going to be an open house in Salem on December 5th from 5 to 7 at Pringle Hall, which is at 606 Church Street South. And there's parking there. It's the one in the building in Pringle Park. And in reacting to Bob's discussion about battery buses, one of the things that my spouse quietly does, because he worked for ODOT Public Transit for 15 years before his 22 years in the director's office, is that he's always encouraged me to take to wait until the big guys have a chance to work out all the bugs so that you get things before the bugs are happening. So I was glad to hear that it's a good idea to sort of wait and tread gently into the water, because those electric buses are a lot of money, and if we're not going to get other buses, we really could maintain our compressed natural gas and our clean diesel and provide more service for the same amount of money. And then lastly, it is really important to vote. And so if you're a registered voter and you have not gotten your ballot, you need to contact your county clerk's office. If you've gotten your ballot, read up and vote. The last day that you should mail your ballot is next Wednesday, the 31st of October, according to people who've worked in the post office. And there are drop spots all over town and all over the county to drop it in. But the most important thing we can do as citizens of this country is to exercise our right to vote.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Or I might just say that we mentioned the Motor Bus Society, and this was their program that they gave us when they came down here. And last Sunday, there was an article in the paper, in the Statesman Journal, about the Oregon Electric excursion train that operated down here. And I actually rode that train. I rode in the coach that's pictured in the picture in the paper. And I have the souvenir brochure, which I'll bring to the work session so you can see it. So is there anything else? Then we will adjourn. And I should announce after adjournment that our next meeting will be December 13th, so if there will not be another meeting in November because of the holiday.